Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, agents. I'm Matty Carl, and we are going to hook you up with some of the best tips for surviving survival solo. Yes, we are going to go ahead and give you our best tips. I know that I am probably one of the only people to tailor this to your solo ability because I feel like survival is actually a little bit easier when you're doing it solo in the first part, and then it gets a little bit harder once you get into the DZ. But I'm going to teach you how to go ahead and make it a little bit easier for you. Now, survival is a great game type despite me shitting on it. The fact is that I don't think it's worth the DLC release. It should have been released for free, but even with that, I have played enough to know that even though I have died a ton at the very end of this, I'm one of the only players in the game that I am in to actually get there. So let's go ahead and get you some tips. First one I'm going to go ahead and hit you with is plan your routes before leaving the safe house. You are solo, so the elements and the enemies are against you. You always need to know where you're going. Leaving the safety and warmth of a shelter, hideout, or fire can have drastic effects on whether you survive. Plan your routes ahead of time and make sure that you are always headed towards a shelter or a hideout and have a waypoint. Heading out without knowing where you're going will cause you to freeze to death or lose track of where you want to go. Always have a waypoint on the map to keep your bearings and make sure you are heading in the right direction. You do not have any friends, you do not have anyone helping you out, you are by yourself, so this is what you need to do. Next tip, head to the high ground. There are always items on rooftops, so you are wise to always climb when you can. Next tip, craft sparingly. You are by yourself. You need to keep those items ready at all times. Items are hard to find, but you will always find them if you follow my next tip. Know what you need at all times and craft in priority. Never waste commodities if you haven't crafted the basic virus filter to get into the dark zone. Make sure you always craft that first. Once you make it to the DZ, always make sure you save up enough for your antiviral and your flare gun. Nothing sucks worse than getting your antivirals just to die looking for pieces of commodities for your flare gun like a weapons part or division tech. You always get a division tech when you pick up your antivirals, but that is really what it's about, is making sure that you have those 2 gold weapon parts to make sure that you can craft that flare gun. Next tip, stay hydrated and stay full. You do not want to be hungry or thirsty. Your vision is based on hunger, and I think a lot of people miss this. Your vision is based on hunger and thirst. When you have a full hunger and thirst bar, you can see boxes and supplies from a really good distance away. Staying at this level will help you find items faster and stay at this level because of that. This will help you get a huge advantage over other players who are going hungry and thirsty because they just lack the necessity to find those supplies. So you always want to make sure that you are not hungry, you are not thirsty. Those are the 2 most important things that I can tell you, because you will be able to see the supplies from far away. You will never miss a supply. When you're running by yourself, you want to make sure you have all of those supplies on hand. When you're with your friends, they can call you over, help you out, get supplies. You are by yourself. Always keep your hunger and thirst away. Alright, next tip. Always look at where players have died on the map. While it may seem like a good idea to rush over there and get their items, unless they are in the DZ, they probably don't have anything worth taking. Keep an eye on the server messages as well, because knowing how someone died is a good indicator of how you're going to die if you run over and find their body. Most likely it's going to be an NPC. They could have froze to death because there's not anything really close by. So that is always a consideration when you're seeing dead players on the map. If they're not in the dark zone, they probably don't have very much on them. So you don't really care about enemies that are basically friends, agents who have died outside the dark zone. Find them in the dark zone. All right. Aim for the dark zone. You can always stay outside the dark zone, but all of the good stuff is in there. You get gold items, you get lots of loot. There is always better stuff in the dark zone. You want to try and get into the dark zone as fast as possible. That's why crafting your mask is vital. You want to spend as much time in the DZ to find as much loot as you possibly can. Once in the DZ, go and craft your items needed for warmth. You only need 22 degrees. I'm going to have a way to show you how much what you need for each slot in order to make sure that that you don't freeze to death. And once you do, you get that cool rare achievement. It's one of the easiest in the game. So go ahead and do that. Make sure you're crafting all of your clothing items for worth so you don't have to keep going in and out of hideouts. You can stay there. Next, in the DZ, look for downed players. If a player made it to the DZ, they have loot and supplies on them, and you need to know where they are. There is no reward for keeping someone alive. Kill them. Take their loot, because it's better to have their loot and a med pack than someone who can potentially take boxes and loot from you and you lose a med pack for reviving them. This is survival, not help an unknown agent game or whatever you want to call it. Now, that's neither here nor there, but you want to make sure that you survive first. This is survival, not help downed people. I know it goes against everything that you stand for, but there's no reason. You're actually doing them a favor. You are actually sending them to the next screen so they get their loot, get back into the game. That's really what it is. Next, pop your abilities before calling in an extraction. This actually should be the #1 tip that I'm going to give you, but I got a couple more for you. Hunters have an EMP. They will disrupt your abilities. Always put down a med bag first and then pop your heal if needed. Once you do that, call in the extraction and get ready for hunters. You want to make sure that you have the jump on them, not them having the jump on you. Next, spend time in the DZ getting everything you can. You have a time limit, yes, and you get a better score for a speedy extraction, yes, but you get nothing if you die because your gear score was 80 going up against these hunters that are going after you. Always look for better gear. There's better gear in the dark zone. You can craft some of it. It's always going to be better. Spend some time in the dark zone. Look at the time that you have left. If you have 20 minutes in the dark zone, don't go and extract right away. Go ahead and spend some time out there getting good loot. That way you increase your chances of actually getting out of the dark zone and extracting. Next, avoid areas you know have a ton of enemies. This is really great for solo players because you do not want to go into like a huge landmark or a battle where you're going to go up against 20 enemies or whatever it is, 5 enemies, 6 enemies. I made this mistake. I went into the sports store by myself and I absolutely got murdered by all the guys in the sports store because, well, I was thinking, I'm like, oh, just go in the DZ and get, no, don't go in the sports store. Try and stay on the fringes and just pick people off as you go in. You want to avoid high enemy engagements. You want to make sure try and stick to groups of 3 to 5 enemies outside on the street where you have good cover and you can make sure that you're not going to get naded or anything like that. This will help you get a ton of sweet loot because there are things that you can do while you're solo that help you get good loot. And that is, if you do need to go into a landmark, try and find other agents that are going in there as well, because this is survival. This is not help your friendly agent. If they kill a guy and loot pops, run up and take it. That's the way you're surviving this. They don't need it. They're with their buddies. They don't need the loot. You want to go ahead, run up there and get as much loot as possible. And who knows, maybe they'll die while they're in there, because that's probably the best case scenario. If they die, their loot is yours. Every man for himself at this point. You are solo in the survival mode and you want as much loot as possible. You want to be able to deconstruct as much as possible. You want to have as many supplies as possible. That way, at the very end, you have a better chance of surviving. If they couldn't even survive an encounter inside the sports store or somewhere else, they didn't deserve it. You deserve their loot. Just kill them and move on. All right, last tip that I'm going to give to you, and that is, we're done with this thing. Now go play survival. All right, well, that's it. That's all I got for you. Remember, being able to survive in survival as a solo player will be easy in the beginning, but get harder as you approach the DZ. You want to look for other players and parasite them as much as possible. It's survival, not friendship happy party time. Being ruthless will get you to the end, get you a much better chance for surviving the extraction. Take your time and you'll make it. It's all about being patient toward the end and getting that loot. So we are going to get out of here. Go play some survival. Go have some fun with it. If you like this video and you like these tips for riding the survival mode solo, go ahead and drop a like. Subscribe to us for more tips and tricks for survival. We're going to be playing a lot of it, probably solo mostly, but I do have some friends that are playing. I do like playing with other players, so if you want to play solo or play survival with me while you're out there, go hit me up. Send me a friend request. We'll hit a survival game or two. And that's pretty much it for me. So for all of us here at Gun Brothers Gaming and Infamous Gaming, thank you so much for watching, and I've been Mountie Carl, and we'll keep the can warm for you. Agent out.